Okay, we are going to give you an example to help explain, since it is a new grading system this year, and now starting with 7th graders, they are now getting letter grades on top of their 1 through 4 standards. So this year, not only are students getting a 1, 2, 3, or 4, but we've also added the 0.5s in between, which will be really beneficial for the students. So if they're almost at a 3, they were almost there at being proficient, but not quite, they don't have to go just down to a 2, they can be at a 2.5. So the in-between is actually really going to help them this year. So here are 2 examples that we're going to show you for math. So for example, this is a 7th grade quiz, but the grading and the concept is the same for 7th and 8th grade for grading. So here's a quiz over adding and subtracting integers. The level 2 skills at the top, examples 1 through 3, the students had to tell us what the absolute value of the numbers were. To reach the level 3 skills, for examples 4 through 12 specifically, are where the students are showing us how to add and subtract integers. Number 13 is more of that deeper thinking question, just digging into the why it works, but we were mainly focused on this quiz for the 1 through 12. That's where the students were aiming on being proficient at. And then to show how they could reach for that 3.5 or that 4.0, we included 2 level 4 questions where they're still adding and subtracting rational numbers, but now it's in different forms, where some of them are integers, some of them are decimals, some are fractions. So here's an example of a student earning a 3. They scored all of the level 2 questions correctly. They knew that absolute value is the distance from 0, and it's always positive. They have all of those correct. So then we really focused on looking at examples 4 through 12. The student did great overall. They just made 2 very simple mistakes. For example, on number 10, they knew that they were supposed to subtract 20 and 16, which is correct, getting 4. They just accidentally forgot to include the negative. But we know, based on their other examples, that they know that it should have been negative, because if we look at number 4 up here, it's the exact same type of problem, and they included the negative on that one. So just a very simple mistake on number 10, and then same thing for number 11. This is the other one they got wrong. They knew they were supposed to add both 17s, and they knew the answer was negative. They just accidentally added wrong. So instead of putting negative 34, they put negative 33. Then on the deeper thinking, the why, they did a great job explaining that you're actually going to subtract when you have a negative and a positive when adding integers, because they gave the example, if you're $5 in debt and you put a $2 deposit into your bank account, you're still at a balance of negative 3. And then for the level 4 questions, they gave it a nice shot. They attempted it, but they were both wrong, so it doesn't count against them. But it shows that they are proficient on these adding and subtracting integer skills, so they earned a 3. So when we go and put that into the grade book, we now would just type in a 3, and then the grade book automatically converts it to a percent into the letter grade. So according to our grading scale this year, a 3, anything between a 3 and a 3.49 would be an A-. So yes, the student did great. They got a 3. They're meeting expectations, but instead of what we would normally think of that being a straight A, it's now going to be an A-. So if a student were really striving to earn that perfect A letter grade, they would need to be getting partial or all of the level 4 questions correct. So in this case, if a student would have gotten one of these questions correct, but not the other one, we would have given them a 3.5 because they got part of it right, but not both sets together. So this would be an example of how a student would get a 3.
This is an example of a paper that would score at the 2.5 level. You can see that all of the level 2 questions are correct. There's also some minor errors at the 3.0 level. So here for getting the negative, same thing here for getting the negative. But then there's also some errors, some bigger errors in the thought process. These were subtracted when they should have been added together. Same thing here, should have been added, and they subtracted here when they should have added. This one, because my teacher said so, there was an attempt, but that's not a why. The question says explain why. and then the level 4s were not attempted. So looking at just the 1 through 12, definitely at a 2, all the 2s are correct, and partial success at the 3.0 level. So that would work out to be about a 2.5.
And then if we put the 2.5 into the grade book, according to our new grade book this year, anything between a 2.5 and a 2.64 would be a B minus. So if the student had one thing inserted into the grade book and it was a 2.5, their overall letter grade would be a B minus. Then if a student starts getting more assignments put into the grade book for evidence and their assessments, it's going to average all of their parent standards together and will give them the letter grade off to the side. So we hope that helps. That's just a little explanation with some examples of how grading is going to work this year.